Okay, so this is part 2. So I didn't get to verse 15 where it says, "The alleys of the sea were exposed and the foundations of the earth laid bare at your rebuke, Lord." So it was God's rebuke, God's righteous indignation, okay, are fueling the strikes, the spiritual strikes, which are compared to arrows that are being shot and are compared to bolts of lightning. The other scriptures I'm going to go over are going to make this crystal clear. Psalm 18:34, "He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze." So it says he trains my hands. God trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. So why a bow? Because he compared his strikes to arrows being shot and to great bolts of lightning. Okay. Now let's go to Proverbs 31 through 4. Okay. It will also help shed light on what's going on here. It says, "I am weary, God, but I can prevail. Surely I am only a brute, not a man. I do not have human understanding. I have not learned wisdom, nor have attained to the knowledge of the Holy One. Who has gone up to heaven and come down? Whose hands have gathered up the wind? Who has wrapped up the waters in a cloak? Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is the name of his son? Surely you know." Now, if you've been following this video series and you see the first part, right, then you pretty much understood what I just said, almost completely. But I'm going to break it down for you. So he says that he's feeling weary. Okay, this is sayings of Agur, son of Jachan, an inspired utterance. Okay, he's humbling himself a bit too much. Or perhaps he, doesn't make clear who this guy is. Perhaps he is not very great. He says he's weary, but he can prevail. He says, surely he's only a brute, right? Instead of a refined, wise martial artist, he says he's only a brute, not a man. He says he doesn't have human understanding. He says he has not learned wisdom, nor has he attained to the knowledge of the Holy One. Now stop. Who is he saying has learned wisdom? Who is he saying has attained to the knowledge of the Holy One? Who is the Holy One? Who is the Holy One's son? In the next verse, he says, "Who has gone up to heaven and come down?" Again, going back to the water, right? The precipitation. Who has, been taken to the earth from heaven, put on the earth from heaven, and has gone up to the earth and come back down, okay, like water. Who has wrapped up the waters in a cloak? So who's in the essence of a soul, right? What is the spirit in his soul, or what is the soul, okay, that has gone up to heaven and come down and has wrapped up the waters in a cloak? We know in Isaiah 59, it says it's a cloak of zeal. So it's wrapped up the water in his zeal, right, in his righteous indignation. Who has established all the ends of the earth? What is his name, and what is the name of his son? Surely you know. Now the Bible says Christ was there from the beginning of the world, right? John 1, that all things were made through him. So who established things with God as his right hand? Okay, and according to the Bible, that is my soul, that is me. How do we know? Because it's saying that it is the top martial arts. New Living Translation says fist. Who holds the wind in his fists? Okay, so who has strikes from God? Who has demonstrated? Who has shown us, rather? I don't like the word demonstrate because the word demon. Who has shown us in truth that he is God's son? And what types of people have sabotaged him? What types of people crucified Christ? Right? It was the white Jews and LGBT community. There was a bunch of LGBT pagan people, okay, in Rome, and they didn't like Jesus because he was against homosexuality. And there was whites and Jews that came together and screened him out, okay? And they screened him out because he, almost first and foremost, because he told them the kingdom of heaven will be taken away from you. And he's chastising his disciples the whole time, saying, "Oh, you men of little faith, and why don't you understand what I'm saying?" And so on and so forth. "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and don't do what I say?" Luke 6:46. He's chastising the Jews and the disciples. They're not good enough. Okay? When he says to Peter, "On this rock I will establish my church," he's talking about God. God's referred to in the Old Testament as the rock of Israel. Okay. So now let's go to Isaiah 28:2. The same verse, same chapter I cited in part 1, Isaiah 28:7, where I said, "Will make righteousness and justice the measuring line, and plume line hail will sweep away your refuge to lie, and water will overflow your hiding place." But before this is said in Isaiah 28, going up to verse 2, it says, "See, the Lord has one who is powerful and strong, like a hailstorm." So what is the hailstorm compared to? one who is powerful and strong, right? God's son, okay? See, the Lord has one who is powerful and strong, like a hailstorm and a destructive wind, like a driving rain and a flooding downpour. He will throw it forcefully to the ground. So what is this kind of storm that's occurring? Okay? It is God's son come into the earth. They give him a hard time. He swells up with righteous indignation. When his flesh dies, shit hits the fan. Number one, there's no way to connect to God. See, I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. I am the way, the truth, and the life. You have no way in logic, in reason, in wisdom, in principle, in spirit, no way to connect to God, to have your prayers heard. You've betrayed God. The parable of the tenants, right? Last of all, he sent his son. They said, he's the heir. Let's kill him and try to take his stuff. Now, as we look at the world, we see a bunch of token minorities. We see a bunch of goons, a bunch of drug addicts. We see a bunch of people who are shallow and fake, who pretend to be Christians, Muslims, Jews, you name it. Every religion you can imagine. We don't see any good people on the planet but my Father and I. Look at them carefully, okay? Just being an average social norm person isn't being good, right? Satan leads the world astray. Narrow is the way to heaven. Broad is the way to destruction. We see wicked people everywhere on a spectrum. Don't let the fact that some people aren't as wicked as others confuse you about the fact that they're wicked. Okay? You need to understand that. So I've definitively shown you in part 1 and in this part, okay, that the clouds are a gathering of righteousness, right? And the true warrior force of God is conveyed through me, his son. And people are supposed to fear God and me. It says, fear the Lord and the king. And don't join in with rebellious officials is what it says in Proverbs. Okay? The people who control all the other cultures on the planet, right? I'm the only one in my culture. My dad is blameless for, bringing me forth along with his other works. Okay? But it says, fear the Lord and the king, and do not join with rebellious officials. And we see everyone in these other cultures are rebelling against my rule, okay? Because they are not smart. They've accepted the mark of the beast. And the beast is also referred to as a brute beast in the Bible. And beast is beta scrambled. So nerds, brutes, thugs, military guys, police, all these guys are mere brutes because they don't have wisdom. They don't have godly and moral wisdom and sound judgment and insight and sense and so on and so forth. They just conform to the wicked world, and Satan has like a bit in their mouth, the Bible says in Isaiah 30. We'll get to that in another video, and he leads them astray. Okay. So I've proven definitively that I am the hailstorm. I am the destructive wind. I am the driving rain and flooding downpour. I am the lightning. Okay? Now, quite often in the Bible we see that, the figs are referred to as good fruit and bad fruit. Everyone will sit under their own fig tree. Some are good and some are bad. There's good fruit and there's bad fruit. There's good lightning and there's bad lightning. Okay? The devil is said to fall to the ground, to be hurled to the earth in a bolt of lightning. Why? Because my warrior force threw him to the earth. Okay? It says he will throw it forcefully to the ground. Satan's spirit is thrown forcefully to the ground. And the snake in the Garden of Eden is cast down forcefully by the warrior spirit of God. Okay? The snake, just like you see in my martial art challenge, instead of accepting it and acting like men and treating it fair and square, they sabotaged me before, during, and the sabotage is still going. Okay? And the sabotage will never be wiped away after my flesh dies. So Satan was tail tucked. All the other kind of religions and spirits, they were tail tucked. And they disgraced their family. Imagine being married to the people who made the call to sabotage me. Okay? That's extremely disgraceful. That is the essence of a beta and a coward. And a grouping of cowards. There's huge committees of these people. Okay? They were thrown forcefully to the ground in extreme disgrace. No defeat is worse than the extreme disgrace of persecuting the most righteous guy ever instead of fairly accepting his challenge. That is the biggest defeat by far in human history, and that disgrace will never be wiped away. And the Bible says the same thing. Their disgrace will never be wiped away.